Sa classroom may batas, bawal lumabas o bawal lumabas. Pero
Good afternoon, students. I am Miss Flor de Liza Di Cachico, your oral communication subject teacher for this school year 2020 to 2021. This week, we will be discussing about the fundamentals of communication. Under the fundamentals of communication are the nature and the elements of communication. Now, before we proceed to the nature and elements of communication, let us discuss what is the meaning of fundamental in communication. Okay, when we say fundamental, it means that this is the basic form of communication. Basic, the beginning, the foundation of communication. I hope you know or you understand what is the meaning of fundamental. Again, when you say fundamental, it is the basic, the basis of communication or the foundation of communication. What are the three natures of communication? First, communication is a process. Okay, pag sinasabi nating process, there is a progress or advancement or changes sa communication. Kasi hindi maaaring communication is the person who is talking in front of you, but also the person who is listening to the message you convey. Yun ang tinatawag na communication as a process. Aside from that, communication is a process because it takes a step-by-step procedure. Diba? Second, communication occurs between two or more people. Okay, the speaker and the receiver. Later on, we will be discussing about the elements of communication. Kasi in natures of communication, it really indicate the elements. The speaker, the channel, to the receiver. Kasi nga, you cannot say it is a communication if there is no listener. Do you get me? Kaya nga sinasabi natin conversation because there is an exchanging of ideas or there is an exchanging of process between the speaker and the receiver. Dili pwede na conversation nga ikaw ra isa, ikaw lang nagstorya, ikaw ra pud ang naminaw. Except sa kuha karon nga ako rin nagastorya, ako ra pud ang nagapaminaw. Okay, kidding aside, but again, communication must have two or more people. Hindi pwedeng ikaw ra isa. Kailangan na dyan kay kauban. It takes two. The third nature of communication is communication can be expressed through written or spoken words. Actions or nonverbal or both spoken words and nonverbal actions at the same time. So, hindi pwedeng communication can be formed in verbal, but also communication can be formed in written. And also, in this 21st century, we are exposed to technology. And it also means that we can use the digital platform as a form of communication, like what I'm doing right now. Ano jud ng life karon? Labaw nag-pandemic. We really need digital platforms for us to convey the message that we want to express. Especially sa kuha karon, I'm your teacher, layo mo sa kuha, LDR ta ninyo. So all we have to do is to use this available technology for me to communicate with you. Or vice versa, kamo makapag-communicate sa kuha. We are done with the nature of communication. Let us proceed to the elements of communication. Nagkano dyan mo naminaw sa mga estudyante karon. I hope naminaw mo dira ah. Pinasugdan na nato karon. Okay, first element, walay lain kundi ang speaker, you, who is the initiator of communication. The speaker is the source of information or the message. Dili pwede nga ang receiver or ang channel ang sinugdanan sa communication. It must be the speaker itself. Ikaw dapat ang una mag-initiate. Kay speaker man ka. Correct? Okay, second, that is our first element. Do not forget, the first element of communication is the speaker, who is the source, initiator of the message. Okay. Second, the message. This is the meat of communication. Yung message. It is where the information takes place, the ideas or thoughts conveyed by the speaker in words or in actions. Sa yung ganina na communication can be expressed through written or oral. It could be verbal or non-verbal. Same as here in message. In message, we can portray, we can express our information, thoughts, and ideas through the following: verbal and non-verbal. Gets? Mao na siya ang pamaagi para mahatag nimo ang message na gusto nimo ipahatag. Nagets ko, students? Nagets ko. Okay, since we're done with the speaker and the message, let's proceed to the next element. Okay, next, let us proceed to the third element of communication, which is encoding. When we say encoding, it is where the message or the information will be converted into words or actions or other forms that the speaker understands. Now, before ma-receive sa listener ang message, kailangan pa i-convert ni encoding kung unsa ang buot o sabot ni message na ihatag sa listener. Do you get me? You get me. Okay, now, in encoding also, dire na to siya itong maingon nga sa nature of communication na ang ingon ito, communication can be expressed through written or spoken words. Mona ni siya ang sa encoding because in encoding, it really express the message via words, written, oral, non-verbal, or verbal form of communication. Mona ni siya ang encoding. Kumbaga, si message yung idea, si encoding ang nag-process, o mo ni siya ang product. If message is a process, encoding is a process also, but encoding has a process and a product also. Kasi nga, siya ang nagko-convert ng ideas na ibinibigay ng message as the element of communication. Gets? Nagets ko. Okay. Since we're done with the first three, let's proceed to the channel. Okay. When we say channel, it is the medium or the means such as personal or non-personal, verbal or non-verbal in which the encoded message is conveyed. Since the speaker has the idea and that idea has been converted into words or actions, mo to si encoding, the channel now will serve as the medium or means. Unsa nga pamaagi nga ma-convey nimo ang message? In what way ba? Pinaagi ba sa personal? Pinaagi ba sa written or oral form? Kasi nga, before na proceed nagi mangutan ani, what is the difference between encoding and channel? Okay? So, diri na to sugdan. When we say encoding, dito na to i-input, dito na to i-convert ang katong message na gusto na to ihatag sa receiver by other forms na masabtan nimo as a speaker. Okay? For example, my message sa kuha karon is kailangan maka-report ko karon sa oral communication. Okay? Iingon ako sa ilahani ang fundamentals of communication, the nature and elements. Now, in what way na ma-form na ko siya? Ma-convey na ko ang message. Okay, mao na ni siya sa encoding. Mo-insert na siya. Ihatag na niya into life. It will bring the ideas into life. Mao ni siya ang encoding. Now, since it will bring the ideas into life using encoding, we will use channel to deliver the message that I want to portray. I want to convey pala. Okay? From the message, the idea, the encoding which your idea will come to life, and then yung channel which is the medium or means that will convey your message. Mano ni siya. Akong idea, maka-deliver ko ang message sa fundamentals of communication. Encoding is masturya na nako siya. And now, unsang maagi nga ma-deliver siya sa receiver? By, unsa man, pwede sa akong digital platform, pwede personal, pwede non-verbal or action, so that the way I understand the idea, magets pod ninyo as a receiver through the use of channel. Nagets? Nagets ko. Okay. Now, let's proceed to decoding. Okay, when you say decoding, it is the process of interpreting the encoded message of the speaker by the receiver. Okay, balik ta. Decoding is the process of interpreting the encoded message of the speaker by the receiver. Okay. Again, it also means na kung mag-decode ka, you are breaking down the ideas given by the speaker. Ang decoding is para lang sa mga magdawat og message or the receiver. Ang encoding is only for the speaker. Encoding tries to convert the message into words or actions, verbal or non-verbal. Decoding is interpreting the encoded message of the speaker. Ikaw mismo ang mag-decode or mag-break ito as a message. So, ibot pasabot sa speaker. Nagets? Nagets ko. Okay. Since the speaker has encoded the message, you as a listener must decode the message. When you say decode, you interpret the encoded message given by the speaker. Mabalaan lang na ron. In what way? Pag mag-respond na si speaker, si listener rather. But before that, we will now proceed to the next element, which is the receiver. Muna ni Sharon. Okay, the receiver now, you are the recipient of the message. Tigdawat sa mensahe or someone who decodes the message. Muna ni Sharon ang receiver, the one who decodes the message. Kung si encoding ay para kay speaker, decoding is for the listener or the receiver. Okay? The receiver, again, basic lang na, the recipient of the message, the one who receives or decodes the message. Okay. Any questions so far? Hindi na ako madunggan. Okay, wala mo diri. Okay. Next, let's proceed to the next element. Feedback. Okay. The feedback is the reactions, responses, or information provided by the receiver. Muna ni ang stage or element wherein you will determine if the receiver or the listener has understand the message conveyed by the speaker. For example, nangutana ang imuhang friends sa imuha karon. Naabay nagchika siya sa imuha nga naay assignment. Siya ang speaker. Ikaw nga receiver, mutubag kag unsa? Nara sa inyuha na. Okay? So, feedback now is the response of the receiver or the listener. Naras imo, for example, na ay manguyab sa inyo ha. Mungutana siya og kanang, will you be my boyfriend or my girlfriend? So ikaw po, sa may respond nimo, the way you decode the message, there is something na murag nanguyab ba ni? Malamang kinangutana sa imo ha, pwede ba manguyab? Okay, pwede manguyab. Ang pangutana, sugton bati ka. Ka-perfect ba? Okay, kidding aside, but feedback now again is the reaction or the response sa information na gihatag ni speaker sa imuha na receiver. Okay, gets? Okay, gets. Gets unta, no? Okay, next is the context. Next is context. Context is the environment where communication takes place. Kung ikaw nga nagstorya mo diriya sa classroom, that is a context. Ang classroom ang context or the environment kung asa mo nagstorya. Gets? Nag-gets ko. Ako dyan, naminaw ba mo class? Naminaw sila. Okay. Since self-explainable po yung context, again ha, when you say context mo ni siya ang lugar kung asa mo nagstorya. Kung asa mo nagkita, nagstorya, nagtinubaganay, mo na siya ang context. Okay, the last element of communication is the barrier. Mo gini siya ang pinaka-problemado, isa sa pinaka-problemado sa communication, ang barrier. The last element of communication is barrier. Barrier is the factor that affects the flow of communication. There are many barriers of communication or hindrances that will affect these two or more people to understand the important message. Diba? Bisa kitang tanan, we have experienced these hindrances or barriers of communication. Sa chat pa lang daan sa imuhang friend, maglahi nimo pagsabot. You have different ideas or backgrounds. And the way you interpret the message is different from how he or she interpret the message. What if na ako iingon sa imuha, ma-misinterpret nimo? No guys, hindrances or barriers have many forms. Each of us have different backgrounds, have different personalities, have different thoughts. That is why barrier or hindrances will come in. It is up to us on how we understand the message. Yun nga sinabi, I remember once na sinabi ng teacher, we listen not to understand, but we tend to listen because we want to reply. Yun yung quote na tumatak sa akin. Kasi nga, the reason why we have barriers of communication because we tend to listen not because we want to understand the message of the person, but because we want to reply, we want to react. That is why in this class, I want you to listen to understand and to speak to understand. Gets? Na-gets ko. Let us review what are the elements of communication. First, the speaker, which is the source of information. Second is the message, or is where your thoughts or ideas takes place. Encoding is where the message is being converted into words or actions. Channel, fourth, is where the medium or means of communication, mapa-personal ba or non-personal, or verbal or non-verbal. Fifth is decoding. It is the process of interpreting the encoded message of the speaker by the receiver. Sixth, the receiver itself, where who is the recipient of the message, or someone who decodes the message. Next, seven, feedback. Feedback, the reactions, responses, or information provided by the speaker. By the receiver rather. Okay, next, context. It is where the communication takes place. And lastly, number 9, the barrier, wherein these are the hindrances or factors that will affect the flow of communication. I hope you learned something from me, guys. And I hope that in this fundamentals of communication, you are able to use it in a good way, no? Sa bisan asa pa lang na aspect. I hope you learned something from me. If you have some questions or clarifications, please PM me to the available platforms na ako ang ihatag sa inyo via Messenger or via Google Classroom or Facebook account or Gmail. Do not forget to study and understand the message na akong ihatag sa inyo Good day and have a great day.
Good day.